Welcome to the third video in my college football breakdown series, ranking the top 10 teams going into the 2026 season. If you haven't seen the first two videos on Ole Miss and Texas A&M, then be sure to go check those out after you finish this one. If you're new around here, we break down every single aspect of these college football teams heading into the season, starting off with the primary offseason changes. This includes head coaching changes, coordinator changes, transfer portal additions, departures. I don't include high school players here. That's something that I've thought about bringing up in the past two videos, but just not something that I really have the time to be able to do. After that, we'll get into the current players on the roster, the starting lineups, and we'll place these units into different tiers. Specific draft eligible players will get numerical grades if I've had time to grade them and feel comfortable doing that. That usually means I've watched enough tape on them and actually can confidently give them a grade. Then we'll get into the scheme, because obviously this channel is called My Film Review, so we have to highlight the scheme. We'll talk about things that went right or wrong last year and what they can kind of expect going into the new season. And then of course we'll end it with the schedule prediction where I'll go through and pick every single game on their schedule. Let's go ahead and get straight into my number 8 team, the LSU Tigers. LSU fans, you guys are very active online, so please subscribe to the channel and leave this video a like and comment if you enjoyed it. Be sure to tell me what I got right, what I got wrong. I'm by no means an expert on LSU football, but I did do a ton of research to prep for this video, so hopefully that all paid off. We'll start off with the coaching changes because let's be honest, if you're an LSU fan, that's what you're most excited for going into this season is getting a change of scenery after Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly was fired halfway through last season after a disastrous loss to Texas A&M and Frank Wilson took over as the interim. LSU would continue on a downward spiral. They would lose to Alabama, barely beat Arkansas, barely beat Western Kentucky, and then eventually they would end up losing to Houston in the bowl game. The offense was really damn bad, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but we will break down a little bit of why it was so dysfunctional. It kind of felt like the entire thing was just trying to make sure that Garrett Nussmeier didn't die. We might as well start a take a shot every time I diss their offensive line game because I think everybody would be poisoned by the time this video ends. They didn't really scheme up anything to beat man coverages. There's a lot of curls, a lot of vertical shots that the offensive line didn't have time to block for. I genuinely just think this offense was boring. They threw so many of these quick screens that would get shut down because of how predictable it was. Their run game was incredibly vanilla. They couldn't get push up front. I mean, the goal of this isn't to talk about last year's team, but it was really bad. Now, Garrett Nussmeier isn't without blame. There were moments where I thought he could have made stuff happen and just didn't, like here. It's first down, just take the dump off to our 6'7" athletic freak of a tight end. But I get it, it's late in the game, you want to make a play, but still, live to fight another down, dude. But yes, it is safe to say that LSU fans will not be missing this offense going into 2026. I feel like the only headline of their season was really beating Clemson in week 1, and then after that, it just felt like you were scraping by until it all collapsed on itself against A&M. Then you lost Garrett Nussmeier, and the end of the year was just trying to survive with Michael Van Buren. But it's okay because the month of December rolled around and then you hired Lane Kiffin and that brought new life to this program. I will say, LSU fans, I am happy for you. I think it's a great fit for Kiffin to be at LSU. We'll talk about his history here in just a second, but it makes sense to me. This is just such a big turning point in your program. He's bringing with him offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr., and he's bringing back LSU legend Ed Orgeron. He also managed to retain Blake Baker, and I promise we'll get to this guy more in depth, but at a glance, those are the roster moves. I talked about running backs coach Frank Wilson in the Ole Miss video. I don't think this is a huge loss, to be honest. It is just kind of funny that they traded. Kiffin brought basically his whole staff from Ole Miss with him, and I think that's what gets people so excited is that the continuity from the Ole Miss success to LSU should translate in theory. Lane Kiffin, of course, has a dramatic history as a college football coach. He had the big name coaching job at the University of Tennessee before he randomly left in the middle of the night for the University of Southern California. During his time at USC, he was tarmacked just a few years into his career, and it's not entirely his fault, but that's another conversation for another day. And then he went to Nick Saban's school for wayward coaches, and he got his name back in the game, coaching at FIU before eventually ending up at Ole Miss. While at Ole Miss, they went 55-19 with an Outback Bowl win and a Peach Bowl win, and technically you can say a semifinals appearance last year. I think that's fair. Kiffin made his title of the Portal King stick while at Ole Miss for a good reason. He brought in plenty of high caliber players like Jackson Dart, Trinidad Chambliss, Kejuan Lacey, Prince William Unmielen, who we'll talk about today. His ability to identify talent and then develop that talent is honestly second to none for the portal. For most coaches, I would say if you have an entirely portal dependent team, that's kind of risky, whereas for LSU, I honestly I feel comfortable with that, more so than I would other teams. Of course, the main reason Kiffin is so well known is because of his antics and Twitter and all of his media attention. Just watch how the whole situation went down for his coaching job. I'm not gonna spend the whole video talking about that, but I will say, with the person as dynamic as Lane, you kind of have to be along for the ride, and LSU fans, it might be a bumpy one. He will bring an entirely new energy to this team though, and that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like, I think this is a great fit, and I would kind of be surprised if he failed here. Not to jinx you guys though. One thing I do know about Lane Kiffin is that he and Charlie West Jr. are offensive geniuses, and we'll talk about that in the scheme section. You can skip there now if you really want to see it, but you are going to see so much fun stuff next year, and it is going to be the polar opposite of what you watched in 2025. Before we move on to the transfer portal, I'll talk briefly about Blake Baker. Blake Baker joined the Tigers in 2024, and he led the Tigers to ranking 27th in total defense in 2025, which is pretty dang good. A lot of this was due to talent like Mansour Delane and AJ Halsey, but Baker's a good coordinator. There's a good bit of time this season where we were talking about LSU's defense as being one of the best in the SEC, if not the sport, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. He is a very good coach. Now, LSU's defense would have random breakdowns during the season. They let up a lot of work over the middle, which we'll kind of talk about later in the scheme section. He does have his flaws as a coordinator, but overall, I really do think you have to be happy with retaining him. Your defense was good. It has its flaws, but accept the fact that you are going to be a good team with Blake Baker coaching that unit. Moving on to the transfer portal, we will start with the losses, and honestly, there aren't too many crucial ones here. The only guy I think that is a legit loss is defensive tackle Walter Mathis Jr., who'll be heading to Auburn. He was just a freshman last season, but he had minimal production. It just sucks to see high caliber young talent leave your program. The other one that isn't fun to lose is Ashton Stamps, a corner who played a ton before this season, but he just kind of got passed up on the depth chart by Mansour Delane and DJ Pickett, which, yeah, that's understandable. He was still a good player, and it's for sure a hit to your depth at the position. He had 12 passes deflected in 2024, which is no easy feat, but he'll be taking his talents to Arizona State, and hopefully he can succeed there. The offensive line losses are just not a big deal to me, straight up. Like, I don't understand how Karius Kern is the top ranked offensive lineman in the portal. It's kind of like how if you're a first round NFL draft pick and you're a bust, you get more chances than guys who are like third or fourth round picks. Just because you're a highly touted high school recruit doesn't mean you're gonna develop into being a good college player. And I don't wanna write him off too early, but man, this offensive line, good riddance to them. Lane Kiffin told them, get out, we're bringing in new guys, and I entirely understand it. LSU did have 7 players drafted this season, and most of them were pretty big names too. Mansour Delane and AJ Halsey are both huge losses, and they're gonna be hard to replace. Delane was the best corner in the draft last season. There's a reason he went 6th overall, and AJ Halsey was also a very good safety that will now be playing for the Colts. So those two guys are a big loss in the secondary, but I think they addressed it well. They had 2 receivers drafted in Xavier Thomas and Barrion Brown, and I had very strong opinions on where Xavier Thomas was drafted. LSU fans were trying to convince me that he's going to be Ben Johnson's next Jamison Williams, and we're not going to see eye to eye there. That's fine. I don't think these guys are that huge of losses when they go to the NFL. Bauer Sharp also got drafted, but this one also isn't as big of a deal to me because you still have Trey'Dez Green, and Bauer Sharp, well, being a good tight end, he had his flaws, and I do think that the other talent you have in the room will make up for the loss of him just fine. It's really funny because a year or two ago, you probably would have expected their last 2 picks and Harold Perkins and Garrett Nussmeier to be the first 2 picks off the board from this team. Harold Perkins just ended up being a true tweener, even though he was a really fun college linebacker. We'll get into the role that he played later, but you're still gonna have to replace that production. The streets will truly never forget the Harold Perkins flu game. That was for the ages, man. And of course, the sad story of Garrett Nussmeier. He was a really good quarterback heading into the 2025 season, even talked about as the #1 overall draft pick. It's just a very real scenario of how coaching and injuries can just derail a player and ruin them. And it's really sad to see. Not that he wasn't without flaws, but he had a lot of talent and it still showed. And I don't know, I hope he can succeed in the NFL. He's with the Chiefs, so he'll for sure get to back up Patrick Mahomes and learn from Andy Reid. We'll see how his career ends up going. Still, even with the loss of Garrett Nussmeier, LSU looks to turn the tide at quarterback now, and we'll get into that with their transfer portal additions. Lane Kiffin went out and bought an entirely new offense headlined by Sam Leavitt, the quarterback from Arizona State. I did a review of Sam Leavitt on TikTok, but he's a good quarterback. As much as I am critical of him and he has some major flaws, this was the pickup that LSU needed. Leavitt has like shocking athleticism, honestly. I remember being at the Peach Bowl and watching him play in person, and he was just like shrugging off sacks from our defensive linemen like it was nothing, outrunning our linebackers. I was like, who is this dude? And obviously I knew who Sam Leavitt was, but he was much faster and much stronger of a player in person than I expected him to be. Leavitt did suffer a Liz Frank injury back in September, and he played through it before his season was shut down in October. For those who don't know, that is damage to the Liz Frank joint in your foot. I'm not here to give any medical diagnosis, but I would imagine it hurts a ton to play through that, so no shame on him for shutting his season down. He did have the pins removed in his foot from the surgery in April. I don't know how that really translates for his spring and fall camp. I would imagine he's entirely healthy by fall camp. I think he's been playing in spring camp, but there is some asterisk to put there with him if he's still recovering from that injury and maybe he looks a little different. We don't know. They also grabbed Hassan Longstreet, the former 5-star transfer from USC, and Landon Clark from Elon. I don't know how Kiffin managed to finesse 3 transfers to come to LSU. I guess they all wanted a shot to play in this offense. I won't spend too much time on these guys since Levitt is most likely the starter and I don't really have good film on them. Then we get to the wide receiver room, and if you don't know, Lane Kiffin basically told everyone else to get out, and he went in and brought all of his own guys, and he loaded up. The first one that I did a player review on is Jace Brown. He had a really productive career at Kansas State, and Kiffin's gonna love utilizing him. He took snaps just about everywhere on the field last season, out wide, in the slot, stacked. He even took snaps out of the backfield. It's stuff like this when I'm watching it, I'm just like, yeah, this is why Lane went and got him. He and Charlie Weiss had Stribling doing the exact same stuff. This is a shoo-in for him. Kansas State really didn't get him the ball enough in space, and that's not something you're gonna say next year, I can promise you that. He had some really nice reps downfield though. I think he tracks the ball well. For being a smaller guy, he can haul in stuff that's above his frame. He is a bit of a body catcher. He's not gonna pluck it out of the air like the next guy we'll talk about, but he's still good. He had some drops last season, that's worth calling out. He's not a perfect player. I actually see more potential in the next 2 guys, but you're probably looking at your wide receiver 1 here just based on the production. He's fast, not game-breaking type of speed. He's a good route runner, not a true artist. He can be great after the catch, but we have limited samples. Like, he's a really good player. I don't know about an elite one though. He also needs to learn to strap on his helmet after last year. So that will probably be your most productive receiver. I think it's just easiest to bet on the production from Jace Brown before, and he's proven that he can do it at the FBS level. He really has all the stuff you look for, and I think this is a great get for them. Next in line is Hawaii transfer Jackson Harris, who I wish I had time to get to, but I just couldn't, and I also have limited film on Hawaii in general. Sorry, the stuff you're watching now looks like it was recorded on a potato, but that's all I have access to. He is 6'3", 205 pounds, so he's physically ready for the next level. He put up almost 1,000 yards last season with 12 touchdowns, and the best part is he only played 10 games. He is a one-year wonder though, just 86 career yards at Stanford before transferring to Hawaii, and he made plays in every area of the field. Like, I think he could be a true X receiver if given the chance. There were moments where he would catch a skinny post and run away from guys. He can bring down end zone fades, run good comebacks. He can really do it all. I think this will be the guy that Sam Levitt says, screw it, he's down there somewhere and play hero ball with, for better or for worse. I really do think Harris is great though. Like I said, I'm gonna bet on Jace Brown being wide receiver 1 just on current FBS production year over year. But Harris really has potential to take the reins and be that true X in this offense, so I'm looking forward to watching him. Then we have Winston Watkins following over Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. Watkins put up 376 yards and 1 touchdown as a true freshman, but he was really 4th on the depth chart behind those many other talented guys they had over at Ole Miss. You could even argue he was 5th on the depth chart. His breakout game was against Oklahoma, where he went for 111 yards on 4 catches. Like I said, he was behind all of these guys like Dejon Stribling. Even Daquan Wright was technically ahead of him as a tight end. Obviously Lane has a role for him though, or else he wouldn't have brought him over. I remember watching him cook Robert Spears-Jennings on a fade route, and I was like, okay, this dude can play, and I think he should look to see a lot more catches this year. I'm excited to watch him. The next one they brought over is Florida transfer Eugene Wilson, and he'll probably be backing up Jace Brown, but I still think he's gonna get his fair share of snaps in this offense, especially with what he can do after the catch. He's just 5'11", 195 pounds, and his only complete college season was in 2023, where he played 10 games. Past 2 years, he's been hurt. He had an incredible game this past year though against Georgia with over 100 yards on 9 catches and a touchdown. He's a smaller, faster, shifty receiver who will do a lot of dirty work with the ball in his hands. His burst after the catch is real. He can get up and go. His freshman year was a lot of swing passes, design touches, even rushing attempts. So yeah, I really like Eugene Wilson. I actually hope he gets some snaps in this offense because I think he's very talented. He just hasn't really had full seasons to showcase it yet. So if he can stay healthy, watch out for him. The final guy I'll talk about is Trey Brown from Old Dominion. He's getting hyped up by some internal LSU people, but he was really good at Old Dominion. It's just the case of what can you do against better competition? He had 3 catches for 27 yards against Indiana, so there's something, but we are gonna need to see more from him. Moving on from the wide receiver room, we'll talk about their additions at tight end, and I'm gonna highlight Zach Grace here. Zach Grace played at Oregon, and he was essentially a fullback, and I think he's important for this LSU team because you have Trey'Dez Green, who's clearly your receiving threat at tight end. There is no debate about that. But having a true blocking specialist is valuable for any offense, and especially a Kiffin one that's gonna wanna run the football. Zach Grace is a great addition. He didn't even record a catch last season, but he played in 24 games at Oregon, and he's seen the field in plenty of the short yardage situations. I think it's a huge get. I don't think there's another tight end in the room that can do what he does physically, and I think his role is going to expand. Now let's transition to the offensive line, where they brought in two key additions to me, and that is Aliuba and Jordan Seaton. We'll start off with Aliuba. He's a guard from Maryland. He originally played at Georgia, but he hit his stride with the Terrapins, you could say. He's a very talented player. I was hoping that Texas would land him in the portal, but we lost. So yeah, congratulations LSU fans, you got Ba. I think he is for sure an upgrade as a pass protector. He looked great in this matchup against Michigan, and that's some high quality competition. You can watch it here. I think he's also better against the run than what they had. The only critique I have on him is motor. I think he can get better at sustaining blocks, playing more violently, but overall, this is such a good pickup and someone who will for sure be starting on this offense. Then we get to the 1B crown jewel of this class, Colorado tackle Jordan Seaton. And for a brief history, Seaton was a monumental high school commitment for Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes. When Seaton went there, it was kind of a boost of momentum for Colorado of people actually taking them seriously, because the year before Seaton committed there, they were just this team that was flashy. They had good receivers, obviously. You had good quarterback play, but you didn't have trench play. Trenches were not your strong suit as a football team. When Jordan Seaton committed there, it was oh, they're actually serious about this. They're gonna go out and land high talent at key positions on the defensive line and offensive line. It didn't really work out for Colorado, but I still think Seaton is a great player. I talk about this in my full review of him. He is a wall against power rushers. He's really, really, really strong, has a great anchor, great strength in his lower body. Now, granted, the pass rushers on the slate this year are much better than who he played, but I think with better coaching and conditioning, he'll match up just fine. I think he's a smart player. He did a great job recognizing blitzes, calling out stunts, even when guys around him couldn't. 90% of his reps looked good, and if you play well surrounded by a bunch of scrubs, that makes me think even more highly of you. He does have his flaws, though. Against the run, he can get lazy. I don't think he's a poor run blocker. I just think he can continue to improve at running his feet. He needs to be more precise with his hands, driving into people's pads like he does on this rep. The worst moments he had, though, were against Utah and John Henry Daly, and he got picked on a lot here. It's tough because they were losing by 40 points at halftime, so you might as well just mercy rule them. I don't think their heads were in this game, but it does show that the highest caliber guys do have their flaws, and I think it's fair to call them out. Aside from that, though, Jordan Seaton is miles ahead of anyone that they had last year, so he will for sure be your starter at left tackle, and I think you can count that position as being locked down. Since there's so many guys on the offense, I'm going to focus on 3 defensive additions, and the first one is Prince William Onmielen from Ole Miss, joining Lane Kiffin. This is yet another top 5 portal player according to On3, and I get it. I would explain him as Colin Simmons light, and I'm not comparing him to Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons is way above Prince William Onmielen as a prospect in my opinion, but I do think that they win in similar ways. They're primarily speed rushers. They're still good against the run, though. Simmons is leagues better in my opinion, but we'll talk about that when we get to the Texas video. I still think Onmielen is a very talented speed rusher. I mean, he had 9 sacks last season, and he's going to bring presence at LSU. Even if he's not as bursty as Simmons, he's still quick off the ball, and he can work his hands. Like you see here, he just flies past Kern and delivers the blow to Nussmeier as he's throwing the football. I think he's strong enough, but he doesn't really have the power that's going to put tackles on the ground. Is it adequate? Yeah, but his best work is really done as a speed rusher and honestly like a true 3-4 outside linebacker. He pursues the football really well. The speed shows up there. I think he's good enough of an athlete to play more true linebacker, but that's in no way saying he shouldn't continue to be primarily an edge. I just think there's value for him there. He also kind of reminds me of what Trey Moore could have been at Texas if he had adequate size to play edge. Like a great athlete, great bag of finesse moves, but Prince Will actually has the size to have an NFL future there. Just watch the Oklahoma game when you have a chance. I mean, the speed pops, the traits pop, very talented player. The twitch on this rush is ridiculous. The game was raining, so I don't blame the slip on him, but this is the kind of stuff he can do, and I think he can be a game wrecker if Blake Baker finds a way to get him going. Also joining Lane is TJ Daugherty, the linebacker, and this was one that Ole Miss fans were very disappointed to lose, and I don't blame them. He is one of these smaller 225-pound linebackers that's gracing modern college football, and I don't love it, but he's still very good at what he does. He's really good in coverage. He has a quick trigger. He's going to drive on the football. I think he plays really well in space, and he can lock down running backs and tight ends in the passing game. His abilities against the run are good too. Like, this is a very smart player. Usually takes the right running lanes, knows when to take on linemen, knows how to get off blocks. He's gonna bring the hits. There are times where the size does wash him out though. Like if a lineman runs in, gets their hands on him and drives, yeah, he's gonna get tossed around. Even receivers and tight ends could get him too at times, and this is just one of the reasons I really dislike the small linebacker trend, but that could literally be an entire hour-long video if I made it one. Overall, Daugherty is a plus starting linebacker though, and the fact that he's gonna get to play next to Whit Weeks is awesome. I think they're pretty similar in style, but I think Daugherty is better in coverage, and we'll get to Weeks, but this is a truly dynamic duo. Then finally, they added a starting safety in Ty Benefield. This is your AJ Halsey replacement. I reviewed him in my offseason series, and I was a little more skeptical on him than I was the others, but he does things just like AJ Halsey did. He's a big, hard-hitting, physical safety, and I honestly think it's really cool pairing him up with Tamarcus Cooley because Tamarcus Cooley now gets to play with guys just like him 2 years in a row. First off, as a coverage defender, he's fine. He's better in zone coverage than in man. Like, he made some really impressive plays getting to sit back, read the quarterback, break on the ball like you see here. He's great when he has the room to sit back and survey and then either flip his hips and go and crash downhill and lay the big hit. I actually think that in man-on-man run with your guy coverage, he got exposed a bit. I just don't think that's really his game. That's fine though, because their secondary is good enough to where he won't have to do that, but as a fan, it is something you should know. You should also know that he is more than willing to play the run in the box. Like, he looks like he genuinely likes to hit. He will lay it to running backs. My man has no fear. Similar to Halsey, he's a physical safety, but he struggles in the open field. I don't know what it is, but all of his form, pursuit discipline, it just goes out the window in space. Like, he missed one too many tackles going for the big hit rather than just making the tackle. He had some flat-out misses and low-effort plays too, and while he can play the run well as a box defender, squaring him up in space isn't exactly the matchup that I'm expecting him to win. With that said though, I really do like Ty Benefield as a player. I think this is a plus starter, and I don't know if you've improved from last year. I think Halsey was probably better, but I don't think you've taken a big step back here. I think you addressed the position really well. Now, we've already covered basically half the roster with these transfers, but let's go ahead and break down each position group and give them a grade in a tier of S, A, B, C, or D. Starting off at quarterback, I'll take this time to dive into who Sam Leavitt is as a player. Typically, I just spend a few minutes showing highlights, but this is a wild football player who could genuinely crash LSU's season or take them to a national championship. Moments like this are why Sam Leavitt was the #1 player in the portal. He could do things that, simply put, no quarterback can do. Mind you, this is him playing hurt. Just, it's stupid stuff that he has the arm talent to do. I mentioned it earlier, but I got to watch Sam Leavitt play in person, and his rushing ability really shined there. Getting out of sacks that I for sure thought he was going down on, breaking tackles, accelerating into open space. The dude was just willing to do anything to win. Something to note though is that he's not really a big designed runner, and maybe that's because he was hurt, but a lot of his rushing yards at ASU came from scrambles. I think that will change this year. If you watched how Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin used Trinidad Chambliss, I would imagine they're going to get Sam Leavitt doing some similar things on quarterback design runs and options. His ability to extend with his legs, though, is what makes him so dangerous. He's fast, he's a good ball carrier, don't get me wrong, but it's the stuff like this that just takes the will of a defense. Now, I promise you I'll shut up about his legs, but this is the pinnacle of what he can do as a quarterback. I don't think that Kiffin will have to take any steps back in the type of stuff that he drew up last year with Chambliss, and of course he can rely on him to make plays out of structure just the same too. Like, that's really what Sam Leavitt excels at. He can make some really clean throws. Like, this isn't caught, but it's almost as perfect of a line drive throw as you're going to get. You really can't throw it better. If Charlie Weiss Jr. can clean up some of the next few things I'm going to talk about, then we have a scary football player on our hands. Sam Leavitt is not a perfect quarterback. He's far from it. I mean, there is still this wild, frantic part of his game. Backyard football is all fun and games until we're taking 15-yard sacks when we could have just thrown the ball away. It's weird to watch him in the Texas and Mississippi State games because those are some of the best competition he's played. Texas, he had a really weird game. I think he had some great moments in there, especially with his legs, but some of his throws, like the game-ending interception, were pretty bad. And then you look at Mississippi State, he goes 10 for 22 with 2 picks. It's like, what the hell? There's also the fact that he will just spray random throws at random times. Like, dude, this is a quick dump-off pass to the running back. How do we miss this? It is kind of like a live by the sword, died by the sword type of player. I mean, you'll curse him out and sing his praise all within 5 minutes based on the way he plays the game. And then the elephant in the room is his dependence on Jordan Tyson. And I get it, it's Jordan Tyson, but the Kiffin offense does not let you just pick one man as your favorite. This is a everybody eats type of system, and we'll get there with the scheme, but I think it'll be helpful for him to play in this because Weiss and Kiffin will clean this up and just give him easy options. So with all of that said, my grade for the quarterback room is an A. I think that Sam Leavitt is a great college quarterback. Yes, there's the deficiencies there, but he will go and flat out win you games with the type of plays that he can make. Obviously, we have great depth with Hassan Longstreet and Landon Clark too, so I don't see any other world where I don't give this room an A. I can't give it an S because I don't think he is that like top tier of quarterback, but he is a very capable playmaker and someone that you should be excited to watch. Complementing the quarterback room is the running back room, and this is one that's not made up of transfers actually, and I probably won't even touch the transfers. We're just gonna focus our attention on Harlem Berry and Caden Durham. Both of these backs had around 500 yards on 100 carries last season, splitting time almost evenly. Harlem Berry was a true freshman who had some great flashes behind a really bad offensive line. He put the moves on people both in the open field and behind the line of scrimmage. As you'd expect for a small back, he's very fast. He really does shoot out of a cannon when he gets a running lane. I don't know, I think he looks bigger than 190 pounds, but that's what he's listed at, and honestly, he kind of plays like that. I think he can improve his play strength and his ability to break tackles. The player you're watching now is a really great example, though, of just the twitch and the burst that Harlem Berry plays the game with. I do think there's a lot of potential for him, especially with how they're going to lean on the running game. He is also a good receiver. Now, Kiffin doesn't typically involve the running backs in the passing game as much as he could, but I'm interested to see if that changes. Now, that's dependent on if Sam Levitt can actually hit him in the flats, but I digress. Then we get to Caden Durham, who's a very similar running back to Berry. He's a little shorter, a little stockier, but he plays the game the same way. He's that quick twitch, bursty running back, showcased in the play you're watching now. I know I said it before, but he is like a ball of twitch. Just 5'9", super fast cuts, quick decision maker. He's built thicker than Berry is for sure, and I think that shows up in the way that he breaks tackles. He's a little tougher to bring down. This is a prime example of that. Like, dude, I don't know. If I had to bet on one of these guys being the best running back in the room, it might be Durham, although I do like both. It's a genuine disservice as to how dirty this offensive line did these guys, and I'm thrilled for them to escape that. He can get up and go, and I'll talk about this later, but for the scheme they're gonna run and the stuff they ask the backs to do, I think Durham's slashing style might fit a little better. That's just my prediction here. He had a 1,000-yard season before in 2024 if you factor in rushing and receiving yards as a true freshman, so there's a lot of gas in this tank and I'm excited for him. My grade for the running back room is a B. I think these guys are both solid players. It's a good room. I don't think Harlem Berry or Caden Durham are like elite, top of the SEC type running backs, and I'd love to be proven wrong. I could be wrong. I just don't know if I see on tape guys that are gonna completely take over games, and that's what I reserve that A and S tier for. Now, a lot of the deficiencies from the running game came from this next group. The offensive line was pure, utter shit. They were the worst running game in the SEC, and I'm sitting here giving this unchanged running back room a B. The offensive line last season struggled badly. They couldn't run block, they could barely pass block. Recognizing a blitz was like doing calculus on the spot. It was awful. They couldn't pass protect one-on-one. I mean, these tackles just got made fools of every single game. Cassius Howell especially had a feast in this A&M game, and this is one of the reasons people viewed him as a first-round pick. I wholeheartedly believe that. They could not run block. It was honestly worse than their pass protection. Like, they don't even get a hand on DJ Hicks in the play you're watching now, and this felt like every single play. They couldn't get a push up front. They couldn't reach their man. Like, do you know how bad you have to be where this hole turns into a 3-yard gain? The losses just don't matter to me. The guys you're bringing in are so much better. They are bringing back center Braylon Moore, and that's actually a good thing. He was the one player on the line where I'm like, okay, this guy's solid. I gave him a decent grade for an offensive lineman. I think Braylon Moore is a good player. I think it's a guy that you want to return. If there's anyone in the room, Braylon Moore's the guy that you're actually okay with returning. At left guard, they bring back Bo Bordelon, who is the son of former LSU offensive lineman Ben Bordelon. He's been a backup his entire career here. He's a 5th-year player. It's kind of exciting for him to go and actually win the starting job as he did in camp. He's played special teams before, so he's seen the field. It's just like, we don't really know what Ben Bordelon is gonna be, and that's the scary part. We don't know how he's gonna be as a starting offensive lineman. Then at right tackle, they return Weston Davis, and yeah, this is an interesting one. This is the weakest link on the line in my opinion. Now, let's be clear, players can improve, they should improve, but we have to go off of what we've seen, and what we've seen just isn't good. There are a few moments on tape that maybe go, oh, okay, maybe we have something here, but you're the starting right tackle at LSU. I would hope there's good moments. Every player has good moments. I thought he went like 40-60 against Cassius Howell. There were some plays where he was able to ride him out around the outside and adjust to the speed, which was nice, but there were also some really ugly losses in here. Against the run, he just completely whiffs on blocks. He did it multiple times against A&M, but I promise you it's not just this game. Here's yet another one where he can't get hands on his guy. Long story short, a lot of improvement needs to happen for me to feel comfortable here, and I know that that could happen. I would almost plan on it happening, especially with the new coaching, but it's very hard to ignore how much of a liability he was. Now, the other 2 spots on the line are filled with proven production in Aliuba and Jordan Seaton. So we already talked about them. Those are major upgrades. When we take this whole unit together, though, it actually doesn't look bad. Like, they really flipped it. We had the worst offensive line in the SEC, in my opinion, last year, and now you have one of the best, and that's because the addition of 2 players. I'm gonna grade this room an A. The reason I say that is because when you look at college offensive lines, they're pretty bad on average. Like, I wanted to write like a case study on this, how college offensive line play is just flat out not good. Like, if you have an offensive line in college that has 2 really good, great players, and then you have 1 pretty good player in your center, that's a great unit to me. This is an A-tier unit, and I actually cannot believe that they were able to flip that from being a D or F-tier unit last year to now being an A-tier unit. Then we get into the tight end room, which is headlined by superstar tight end Trey'Dez Green. Green is a monster, dude. He will pull down any catch thrown his way at any area of the field, but particularly in the red zone. He's a quarterback's best friend, whether it's as a safety blanket, contested catch guy, in the screen game. Green's gonna make a play, and he plays the game like a wide receiver. I think the other guys will assume the inline role, and I think for his sake, he should try to play more there for his NFL future, but I don't know, he's so good at what he does, you probably should just let him do it. He's a good blocker on split zone assignments where he has to crack back and throw a shoulder into somebody, but he's not the best at driving off the ball. He shines as a contested catch guy though. If he gets the targets, I genuinely would not be surprised to see 8+, 10+ touchdowns this season. I wish I could spend more time on Green, but it's like, there's kind of no notes here. You can watch my full film review on him if you want, but at the end of the day, fantastic tight end, great college football player. You're not gonna ask him to do much more than what he's already shown you that he can do. My grade for the tight end room is an S, as you probably could have expected. You have a top 3, top 2, maybe even top 1 tight end in the sport. To me, it's arguably him or Jamari Johnson. I would probably lean towards Jamari Johnson, but we'll get to that when we talk about Oregon, and yes, spoiler alert, Oregon is in the top 10. And then finally we get to the wide receiver room, and they have one returning player in Phillip Wright. He had 1 catch for 2 yards last season, so not much to talk about there. Factoring in all these transfers though, this is an A-tier unit for me. I actually debated the S tier, but I think there's enough unknowns for me to reserve that ever elusive S grade. Could this be the best group in the SEC? Absolutely. They have the depth, the talent potential, but there's multiple G6 guys and injury-prone players here, so I think it's safe to just make this tier an A. A is very good, it's a very improved unit, but they still have a lot to prove. For the offense as a whole, I'm also gonna give this group an A, and part of that is factored in by the fact that you have Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis Jr. controlling it. The talent is great. They went out, they got all these new guys. We'll see how they gel. I mentioned this in the intro, but like for other coaches, yeah, I'd be a little nervous going and bringing in all these transfers, but it's Kiffin. This is what he does every single year, and he always seems to make it work. So who am I to hold judgment against that? This offense could be very scary. They could turn themselves into an S-tier unit. They could be the best offense in the SEC, and I don't think anyone would be truly shocked. But for now, I'm gonna leave this as an A due to some of the unknowns and unknowns of how transfer portal players will gel together. Now, let's move on to the defense where we actually have some guys to talk about that aren't the portal additions. They kept a lot of their key pieces on defense, especially at linebacker and in the secondary. For the defensive line, I really wanna focus on the interior here. The depth chart right now is a bit odd. In spring ball, it was some rotation of true freshmen Richard Anderson and Deuce Geralds, Auburn transfer Malik Blockton, and then true junior Dominic McKinley. All of these players were high caliber recruits. They have the talent, but none of them have production. It's the same when we look further down the depth chart with true freshman Lamar Brown and Clemson transfers to Phylon Green. The potential here is high, yeah, clearly, but we don't know what it's gonna be. None of these guys have really produced. I watched some of Dominic McKinley since he was the basically only returning player on the team for this unit, and he was good. I don't have many notes there. I thought he was a good player. I didn't really give him a grade just because we saw him sparingly. And then of course we had the edge room with Prince William Onmielen, who we already covered, and then the other transfer in Jordan Ross from Tennessee, who I watched briefly but did not really have time to do an in-depth breakdown on. He was a former 5-star, #1 edge rusher in his class, but he was really just a rotational player and he didn't start in any games at Tennessee, so there's not much to go on here. Another veteran yet unproven player is Gabriel Relaford, who probably would have gotten his shot had he not tore his ACL in the spring. And unfortunately, the other transfer is Jalen Brown from South Carolina, who missed the entire 2025 season with an ACL tear, so I can't really talk about him either. So this brings me to my last player on the depth chart in Dylan Carpenter, who's a 4th-year player, but you guessed it, he's only appeared in 20 games and his season high on tackles is 15. So we don't have much to go on here either. This room is almost entirely unknown to me for the entire defensive line. If you get the sense where I'm going with this, I'm gonna give this room a C, and that might sound crazy to some people, but really the only guy that you can count on here is Prince William Onmielen, and Prince William Onmielen is great. Don't get me wrong, he's an incredibly talented player, and he's gonna raise the ceiling of this room, and he alone could make this a B-tier unit to me, and maybe some of these guys pop. Maybe some of the true freshmen do go out there and show you that they're 5-stars for a reason, they do prove themselves, but we can't bank on that. So I'm gonna go with the C-tier unit just to be fair. I've typically gone with the C-tier grade for other unproven units in this series, so to keep it fair, we're rolling with that. But don't worry, LSU fans, the linebacker room could not be any further from this. We have 3 studs with TJ Daugherty, Whit Weeks, and Devon Keys. And I'll get this out of the way now, this is an S-tier unit. Of course, up first is Landry Kiffin's boyfriend, who was an all-SEC player as a freshman, and then despite suffering injuries on and off last year, he was still a very good player in 2025. Weeks is the heart and soul of the LSU defense. I thought they looked visibly different with him and without him on the field. He was constantly getting guys aligned, knowing what the keys were, looking over to the sideline. He's a green dot player. He's gonna control this defense. I think people think of Whit Weeks as this hair on fire thumper, and yeah, he's pretty well-rounded, but honestly, he's a speed and finesse type of player. He's good in coverage, he has great football instincts and IQ. He rushed the passer a lot, They would bring him and Harold Perkins both down off the edge. He also blitzed a ton, which we'll talk about in the scheme section, but they wanted him after the quarterback. He's still a smaller linebacker, and that shows in his ability to take on blocks in the open field. That's somewhere he should look to improve, but obviously there's just that natural physical limitation. Regardless though, Weeks is great. He's the heartbeat of this defense, and I think having him back healthy is so important. A lot of the coverage busts and broken runs they didn't happen when he was on the field. And I do have to give a shout out to Devon Keys, Alito's very own. He stepped in to fill the shoes of Whit Weeks while he was injured and did a pretty good job doing so, honestly. I think he's a more physical linebacker than Weeks is. He had 88 tackles last season. He'll probably take a backseat with Daugherty joining the team, but their defense is interesting in the way that they use their linebackers. We'll cover that, but I would expect a slight dip in production for him. Now, what I'm getting to here is that Blake Baker's defense utilizes the star position, which you've probably seen on the graphic by now. This is really a hybrid position of a safety, edge, and linebacker all in one. This creates room to get 3 linebackers on the field without compromising any sort of athleticism. It takes a special player to do that. The guy you see listed here is Deshaun Spears, and honestly, I think there are certain packages where TJ Daugherty could slide into this role given his skill set if he has to. The starter though is Spears, the 6'3", 210-pound safety. He technically didn't start last season, although he was in the rotation. He is exactly what you would expect from someone taking over this role. And while he might not be as good of a pass rusher as Harold Perkins was, he might be better at some of the other stuff. He has really good instincts to find the football, undercut routes. He seems to read the quarterback really well. The point of this position is to do exactly that, to be this unique player that the offense can't game plan for, and he does that very well. This is just a sneak peek of what you will see with Deshaun Spears. Now, he will have to adjust to some of the more true linebacker edge type work that'll be expected of him, but he's already a huge plus in coverage, and it'll be fun to watch him develop. Talking about the linebacker room is a natural transition to the secondary with that star player that kind of serves as like a hybrid safety linebacker. Starting us off though, we have Ty Benefield, who I already talked about as one of the transfers. They bring him in as that AJ Halsey replacement, and he will be playing next to Tamarcus Cooley. I think that Tamarcus Cooley and AJ Halsey smelled salts together between every single series last year because, oh my lord, does this dude like to hit. It's like him and Halsey just made bets with each other of like who would take someone's soul more often. It's a sight to watch. If you like smash mouth old school football, treat yourself to a Tamarcus Cooley cut-up. He will destroy blockers like there's not really a technique to it. He just smacks the hell out of you. He's a little over-aggressive. That usually is the drawback of players like this, and honestly with him, that's fine. I mean, you just tell Cooley to go seek and destroy. He's a really sure tackler. Even though he might over-pursue looking for the big hit, he doesn't whiff too much. He'll also get guys down on the ground, at least from what I watched. He's okay in coverage, but that's not really what you're looking for him to do. If he gives up a play now and then, it's like, oh well, because you're going to get wild interceptions like this one, and of course the big hits and the fear that he instills in an offense. Then there's PJ Woodland, who was the corner opposite of Mansour Delane last season, and yes, playing opposite to the 6th overall pick in the draft helps as a corner, but he was pretty damn good in his own right. He's very sticky in coverage. He had 8 pass breakups and 2 interceptions, one of which you're watching now. The only real knock on him is that he's only 165 pounds, allegedly, so a bit on the lighter side. He can still add weight, it's just tough to count on that. That said, though, he's not afraid to tackle, he still plays physical. It's not anything I'm truly concerned about. I just thought he was a really good football player. He's probably CB1, but it's tough because the next guy we're going to talk about is very different from him. PJ Woodland is 165 pounds, super fast, twitchy, refined. And our next guy is 6'5", 195 pounds, and is a blanket as a true freshman. And of course, I'm talking about DJ Pickett. DJ Pickett got rolling last year. He's a former 5-star, so obviously you expect a player like that to be productive, but for a true freshman corner to have the impact he did, that's rare. They blitzed him a ton. We'll talk about that in the scheme section too, but they wanted to get him making plays no matter where it was on the field. You can tell that Blake Baker really believes in this kid, and how could you not, man? I mean, he looked great in his time as a freshman. He also recorded 3 interceptions last year, so clearly he knows how to play the ball when targeted. And yes, you just watched all 5 of Derek Lagway Jr.'s interceptions against LSU last season. I am going to grade this secondary in the S tier. I think they deserve it. I think the talent they have coming back is great with Woodland and Pickett and Cooley. And then you add in Ty Benefield, who's a really good safety in his own right. I mean, I think this unit is very deserving of that S tier, which brings me into my total grade for the defense, and I'm giving it an A. I think this is an A tier unit in the SEC. You have good coaching with Blake Baker, you have great talent in the back end, and you have Prince William Unmielen too, who's going to be a star off the edge. So when you factor that into the overall defense, you got a really good edge rusher, a great safety duo, you got a great cornerback duo, and then you have some great linebackers. Like, this is a really, really solid unit. Now let's talk scheme, and the fun part for this video is that we have this LSU defense versus their new look offense from when LSU played Ole Miss last season, so we'll really dive into that tape and see how the two played each other and how they went against each other and what kind of stuff that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be bringing. Charlie Weiss Jr. does call plays. Lane Kiffin is the one who's known for his offense, but he's kind of said publicly, like, he's handing the reins off to Charlie Weiss. This is not his thing. Obviously, he'll have the executive decision making and help Weiss with the scheme, but they really do it together, and then Weiss is the guy that's gonna take that fall on game day. He's gonna be the one down there with the play sheet. Now, the core of the Charlie Weiss, Lane Kiffin Jr. offense is the RPO, which stands for run pass option. There's a reason that run is first, because that's generally gonna be your primary decision, is to run the ball out of this. I will break down the RPO further in the Indiana video. Another spoiler alert, Indiana's in the top 10 of the series. And I think that's just because they rely on it more so than this offense will. It's still very important to understand it, but I'm gonna save that for that video because that'll take up the bulk of the scheme section. If they have one key formation, it is this. They'll line the tight end up either just off the ball or at this H-back spot, and then we'll get a 2-receiver set or trips to the field. This play goes to grass based on just what Caden Lee is able to do as a playmaker, but there's a lot more fun stuff they're gonna do. If you have to prepare for one thing though, it's this. They're typically in 11 personnel, which for those that don't know, that is 1 running back and 1 tight end, but they'll move the tight end around a ton. And if you want videos on some of the terms I'm talking about, please comment that below because I would love to do more of these like football 101 type videos during the season. They'll run 12 personnel too, but it usually involves the tight end in the slot and then motioning in line. This is why it's perfect for Trey'Dez Green, because that is what he does. They'll run split zone out of this almost every time, but obviously it's effective. When it comes to running the ball, they are a heavy zone running game. Simply put, you can recognize this based on how the linemen move. You can see here they all take a step in the same direction simultaneously when the ball is snapped, getting out to block their zone. On inside zone, the back has the option to either bang, hitting the play side A or B gap, bounce outside the tackles, or cut back, which the great backs can make work. This play here ends up being quite a bit of traffic, so Lacey doesn't really have much of a choice, but you get the idea. They have a very diverse running game though, and that's what makes this team so difficult to prepare for, is that they're gonna throw everything possible at you. It really helps when you have a decisive back who's gonna hit the hole and get upfield. This is why I think that Caden Durham might be the team's best runner this season. Here's a fun wrinkle they'll throw at you. The quarterback's gonna go under center this time, and we have a bunch formation. It's also first down, so this is screaming run if I'm the defense. We're gonna get Caden Lee in motion, and it's very subtle, but it gets Perkins to shift over just a bit. When we pitch this ball, Perkins is now out of position, and it really doesn't have the angle to blow this play up. If we don't get this motion, Perkins probably stays out here, and even though we have the extra blocker, he would still have the leverage to stretch this play to the sideline or make him cut back into traffic. Instead, we have a good enough athlete at running back to take advantage of the bad angle, and we turn this into a big gain. One thing that Weiss does to add to the complexity of this is the ability of the quarterback to run the football. Almost every play is an option, which means the QB can either hand the ball off or keep it, typically based on what the defensive end does, but sometimes the linebackers too. The quarterback run game matters so much because of how it freezes the defense, so let's take this for example. We're gonna get what looks like some version of quarterback power with the option for a running back sweep. Now, when we see this end crash, I actually think he could have kept the ball, but the reason that the stretch can actually go to grass is because of the bind that we put keys in. If he goes hard inside to stop the draw, we leave the outside line wide open. If we head outside and the quarterback keeps it, we've got nobody in line. And this forces you to decide. And if the offense is smart, you're gonna be wrong no matter what. Sam Levitt, get ready to learn design run, buddy, because these are the type of things you're gonna get asked to do. It's a simple concept, nothing too crazy, it's just quarterback counter, but Levitt will be asked to run this, and I think he's capable of it. Maybe not as good as Chambliss, but still very close. But yeah, they'll get into some wild option stuff with the running game. Here we're gonna get a 2-back set, but with the receiver in the backfield as the gadget guy, and they're gonna run read option, but the receiver follows behind the quarterback as he fakes, and I don't watch them do this in any other games that I saw, but technically there is the option for him to pitch this ball if he decides to keep it. So with all of that said about the running game, let's talk about the formations they run, because that's something that is hugely important to the success of this offense. Here's a funky set. This is quads to the field with a tight end lined up at running back. I feel like Charlie Weiss and Kiffin just have this going through their head when drawing these things up. After all that BS though, we're just running a quarterback draw, and Chambliss makes something happen, so sometimes it's just eye candy. Here's another formation they'll throw at you with this wide bunch set. Now, this is typically a man beater because it essentially forces you to play zone because of the traffic and drop into more of that man match type philosophy that we talked about in the Ole Miss video. I think that's what LSU is trying to do, but Harold Perkins loses sight and decides to take Daquan right deep rather than turning his eyes to the flat, where we see Watkins on a whip route running wild. Now we can add this to the list of formations they run. This is a super wide alignment trying to stretch out the defense, and then we have the stack of the tight end and running back. We're gonna get a screen out of this, which just because of the position LSU is in, it's gonna work. We catch them blitzing to the side of the stack, which then creates this natural 3v3 type of setup, and all we gotta do is make the deepest man miss, and we're gonna pick up yards. At this point, I'm not covering any new formations because you get the point for this section of the video, but we have this final fun one where they line up the receiver at basically the tight end spot, and then they line up the tight end at H-back. They don't do anything special here, but they will occasionally leak this receiver to the flat in the right situations and get him running to grass. The offense places a massive priority on getting the ball out fast. That's hitches, curls, slants, you name it. If there's space, they're going to take advantage of it. Teams typically ran man-to-man coverage against Ole Miss because if you're going to play off, they will just RPO hit you to death. As fancy as the motions and formations and play calling can get, at the end of the day, they just want the ball out of the quarterback's hands for the quickest profit. The goal is to create easy wins, quick slants, cause traffic to get guys in space. This is why NFL teams are scared of Kiffin quarterbacks and receivers though, because so much of the work is just done for them. You don't get the same spacing in the NFL that you do in college to make this work, and defenders are smarter and the simplistic one-read stuff just doesn't work. They're gonna throw eye candy all over the place at you. We've got their go-to formation, as I like to call it here, with the tight end in line but off ball, and then a two-receiver set to the field. In this play, we get the motion for the tight end to help ID the coverage, and then we fake the screen and get heads turned even more in that direction, and then we're gonna get our guy Caden Lee up the seam for a huge explosive. Now, to be honest with you, I don't know what Cooley is doing here. Unless he's got his eyes on Lacey, there's really no threat in this zone, but this is also on Halsey. I mean, I know you're lined up on this hash, big dog, but the passing strength is over here, and yeah, we got guys running wild. Something that Kiffin and Weiss do better than no other is getting the tight end the ball in space. So hello, Trey'Dez Green, get ready. The play starts off with a motion from the receiver, something that almost every play in this offense has built in, but then we're gonna run what looks like GY counter. Down and distance is important here because if this was like 3rd and 3, maybe you'd be a little more tuned in to the passing game, but it's 2nd and 9, so running counter makes sense. What we're gonna take advantage of though is that we have nobody out here. This is no man's land. So this linebacker is going to read counter and try to fill his gap. What he doesn't see is that the tight end isn't coming to block him, he's leaking out. And we pick up a huge play just by being able to take advantage of what the defense is in. This is one of the plays that I don't like in the Charlie Weiss offense. It's these designed one-on-one shot plays. I don't know if we knew who DJ Pickett was at this point, but you better really like your matchup to feel good about running this. And they did this in the Georgia game, the LSU game. It didn't usually work out for them, so I wouldn't be surprised if they tone this down a little bit. You're also going to get the added bonus of creative plays like this one, where Trinidad Chambliss is going to look to the sideline, acting like he's changing the play, get the defense off guard, and then we're going to snap the ball, and we've got a man wide open. So all that trickery is coming with you from Ole Miss. That is truly just the tip of the iceberg for the Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. offense. There's a reason it's so popular. It creates easy situations for the quarterback, easy reads, get the ball out fast. That's what they care about. They want quick profits. Like I said, they want to give you the simplest look possible. If you're going to play off, we're just going to throw the hitch. And if you're going to play man-to-man, then we're going to dial up some wild motions and man beaters to get you in chaos and traffic. This is a stark contrast to how boring the LSU offense was last year. Even if it crashes and burns, at least you're going to have fun watching this, and it's not going to be like watching paint dry like you were subjected to last season. Then we move on to the defense, and for all the wild stuff you saw on offense, there's not as much of that happening over here. I honestly think Blake Baker's scheme is pretty simple. It's player friendly. I think they win with just good football players, and we're gonna break that down. They're a 4-3 technically football team. You can see this here with the 2 linebackers plus the star, and we've got 4 DBs. I like this look because we literally cannot simplify it any more than 2 corners, 2 safeties, 3 backers, 4 down linemen. Now, with the switch of Deshaun Spears into the star position instead of Harold Perkins, this might look more like a 4-2-5, so it'll be interesting to see how they line this up. Let's talk about what the star player does for this team. The answer is really simple, everything. So we'll watch some of this Vanderbilt tape. At its simplest, this player is an outside linebacker just with heavy pass coverage responsibilities. You'll see here he's lined up over the slot and then is responsible for covering Eli Stowers, who is a very good tight end. Against heavy packages, the star will just play as a box linebacker, but he's still going to have coverage responsibility first on running backs or tight ends. The job of this player is to read and react and get there fast. Here's a perfect example of that against the run. We've got Perkins shooting his gap instantly. It's a lot of responsibility because you have to be as physical as a traditional linebacker, but then you have to be able to play in coverage just like a safety. You have to be able to hold your own in space. You have to be a good coverage player. This is why I think that Spears will be a great fit for this role, because as fun as Harold Perkins was to watch and he had his flashes of greatness, I think he was very inconsistent, and I think Spears might be able to turn that tide. Sometimes they'll literally have the star play as a corner. They even had Harold Perkins out there, which is kind of wild, but you can see the job remains the same. See ball, get ball. Now moving on, let's talk a little bit more about their actual scheme. They are a man coverage cover 1 football team primarily. I think that they want your best to beat their best, and they're going to test you. They're not Notre Dame. They're not in man coverage like 80% of the time, but they do run it much more than some other teams that we've watched. They don't disguise coverages too intensely. You can see them rotate into a cover 2 look here, but there's nothing crazy or special about this. They don't do anything wild on the back end. They mix in everything, but primarily they're running cover 3 with some match principles or cover 1. And because of this, something LSU did well is stop the run for the most part. They do have a bit of the A&M syndrome going on where they're good down to down, but would let up explosives. Here's an example of them lining up in this tight front to clog these inside running lanes. And then we see the backers just doing their job, filling gaps. We get Cooley feeling out the play really well and coming downhill to fill the run. They don't do anything crazy, but they trust their players to make plays. This team really does kind of line it up and just say, play ball. There's nothing fancy happening here. We've got a defensive tackle who wins his rep immediately, and then a linebacker who's able to mirror the back and scrape to make the tackle. One thing about Blake Baker is that he's gonna blitz the linebacker. They ran this all the time to the point where it would not even faze me as an offense. They're gonna blitz Whit Weeks and then drop the end into coverage. It's nothing wild, they do it a ton. It's still a 4-man pressure, so really no chaos being caused here, but when he gets in his bag, he can cook up some nice stuff. Here's a good one where they come out in an overfront with this backer basically head up on the guard, and this linebacker is outside and is going to be faking blitzing, and Harold Perkins is just kind of lurking. Clemson slides their protection towards the side with more bodies, and then Perkins executes his blitz with perfect timing. And this is what I mean, like, it's not crazy stuff, it's good football players making good plays. This is a good example of the corner blitzes that Blake Baker likes to run. What we get here is a 3rd and 3, and on the back end, we're going to have cover 3 with Whit Weeks responsible for anything that crosses his space. This is a risky play because if this receiver sits and Klubnik sees it and throws into the blitz, it's a first down. But they get lucky. The defensive end is going to get upfield and clear a lane for PJ Woodland to come through. We get Adam Randall going out on a route instead of blocking, which it's his first game starting at running back, so we'll cut him a break. But we end up giving up a huge sack on 3rd down to start off this game. Here we get something a little more interesting. We get 2 defensive tackles lined up right next to each other, the defensive end at 4-eye, and then Perkins is out here at like a 7, and Whit Weeks is at the wide 9. This is a blitz look. I think Clemson accounts for all these guys coming, but what they don't account for are the twists on either side with the linebackers and the linemen. We can see them both happen here, and that generates immediate pressure up the middle. To add to that chaos, we're gonna blitz this linebacker too, and this just creates the muddiest possible pocket for Klubnik. Now, as sick as this was to watch, Klubnik escapes, and he doesn't get many yards, but it gets much worse the more you watch the tape. The key flaw of this team is that mobile quarterbacks just slaughtered this defense, and a lot of this was because they routinely lost pass rush contain and lane integrity, showcased in the previous play, but we can see it here. They're just going to lose all integrity because Whit Weeks and McKinley run into each other, and they've got no defenders able to account for Chambliss. Pretty much any mobile quarterback not named Lenora Sellers or John Mateer gave them fits. Taylor Green ran wild on them, Diego Pavia ran wild, Marcel Reed ran wild. I mean, you've seen it time and time again. They are really bad against mobile quarterbacks. We'll go to this Vanderbilt game because, yeah, Pavia got a lot of teams, but the way he gets them isn't doing anything special here. They're just giving this up easily. They open up the middle of the field a lot. Their pass rush is aggressive, but they don't play with a lot of discipline. It gets worse at the second level because they either just don't care and shade their backers over here, or these linebackers are also very undisciplined and drift too far into coverage to account for quarterbacks. Here's one where Pavia is easily able to roll out to his right. We bring 3 guys on the left side, and the one guy we're rushing on the right side takes the inside lane. So congrats, you didn't give up the middle of the field, but you left the entire half wide open with no quarterback spy against one of the craftiest guys in the country. Here's another one just right up the gut. I'll give Vanderbilt credit here. They get the whole defense flowing one way, and then Pavia is good enough to see this and take off. But we get killed like this week in and week out multiple times in the same game. And it's difficult because I highly doubt Blake Baker is coaching these players to assemble in groups of 3 to triple cover a running back, so I'm not blaming it on the scheme, but at some point we have to put guys in position to make plays and figure out what this problem is as a staff. Now, it's not all bad. They are overall a very good defense, but there's a valid argument against them that they give up big plays in key moments. They leave the middle field open way too often, and at some point, after all those occurrences, you kind of just have to accept that that's who they are and take the good with the bad, or you got to fix it, and we'll see if they can do that. I hope this helped you understand LSU's defense a little bit better. Realistically, they are a good unit in the SEC. I mean, they were top tier last year. Despite all the flaws that they have and the big plays they gave up, I still think this is a very quality unit. There's so much more too that we could have talked about with stuff that they do, but for the sake of time, I like to keep these videos under an hour if possible, and I don't really know what we're running at right now, but I'd love to break down more of these defensive schemes throughout the series and in possible series after this one. Finally, let's break down the schedule for 2026, and I actually don't think it's that bad, and they get a great slate of home games. They open up with a huge first game against Clemson in, well, wait, Tiger Stadium, Death Valley, I don't know, they're the same thing, but it's at LSU, and I do think that they win yet again. I could see Clemson bouncing back to maybe like a 9-3, 10-2 type season, But I think in week 1, LSU is plenty good. They're gonna get this win. Yeah, I'm just not entirely comfortable with what Clemson's gonna be able to roll into Baton Rouge with. Then they play Louisiana Tech, that's a win. And then they play Ole Miss, and I talked about this in the Ole Miss video, but I think that LSU loses this game. I think that currently Ole Miss is a more put together team with Trinidad Chambliss and Kejuan Lacey. We know that this defense will get killed by mobile quarterbacks, so that's one thing you have to factor in here. But I'm also factoring in the transfer factor, and I know that I said Lane does a great job of bringing these guys together, but it's still week 3 on the road, huge emotional game. I just think Ole Miss pulls this one off. But I think they bounce back next week and get a win over Texas A&M for the first time in 3 years. It's a bit tough because A&M could win again, but honestly, this fan base is gonna be so fired up, especially after the loss to Ole Miss. I really just couldn't see 2 losses in a row here, and I think that LSU beats A&M. This will be a game that I will for sure break down more of in season though. We're gonna do a full roster breakdown and scheme breakdown when we get to that week. After A&M, they get the emotional come down with McNeese State, no comments here. And then they go to take on Kentucky, and I've seen this one before. This game is at night, either 5 or 7 p.m., and oh my lord, am I tempted to pick Kentucky here, but I don't think Lexington strikes this time. I think this Kentucky team could be very good under Will Stein, especially 2 or 3 years from now, but just for year 1, I think there's just too much talent on this LSU team. They scrape out a win, but it could be close. I think this could make them uncomfortable. Then they get to play Mississippi State at home, and Kamario Taylor might be something great. This team could be good. I just don't see it. I think LSU wins again. And then they play Auburn at Jordan-Hare. And sorry to edge you here, LSU fans, I debated picking them to lose this game too. I have a gut feeling that they'll lose one of these random road games, but I can't in good faith pick them to lose to Auburn this year. It's a win. Then next they get Alabama at home, and this better be electric. If you are an LSU fan and you were in Baton Rouge, you better make this game rock. I think this one's gonna be so fun to watch, especially with some of the possible college football playoff stakes that are gonna start to arise at this time in the season. I'm picking LSU to beat Alabama, and I've picked Alabama to lose 2 videos in a row now, and I guess the reason behind that is I don't know anything about that quarterback room. I mean, I'm a little scared to say. I just don't know what it's going to be. They're both very talented, I'm sure, but I can't pick the team with more unknowns to win a game on the road in this hostile environment against a very talented team. I think LSU beats Alabama, and Alabama has to do a little internal check after this, losing to them and Texas A&M. And then they play Texas, and when I set out to make this video, I actually was going to pick LSU to win this game. If there's one game on Texas's schedule that I could see a loss in, this is probably the most likely. Huge road game. Manning has yet to play well on the road, and I think this type of offense has given Will Muschamp fits before, but Sam Leavitt is a wild card quarterback, and I think that one of these games he will do something that will make this team lose, and that could be on one of those other road games like an Auburn or Kentucky. He's just so crazy that I don't know what we're gonna get from him, and this could be the game that bites him, but I'm honestly picking Texas to win because of that mobile quarterback factor. I think that Arch Manning's legs are the key to victory here. I don't know why, I'm just kind of going with my gut. I think that Texas manages to win in Baton Rouge, although it'll be a wild game. Super excited for it. I will be there, so maybe no video that week, but I'll definitely break it down going into it. After the Texas game, they go on the road to Knoxville, and Lane Kiffin returns again. I think this one is less dramatic though. I think LSU wins, especially if they lose the week before. Somehow I just think they have a higher chance of losing at Auburn or Kentucky than here. It's weird. And then they end the season in Fayetteville. End of the year, game is at 11 a.m. LSU wins easily. Sorry, Hogs. I just think it's going to be another rough season for you. So that puts the Tigers at 10-2 overall. And I think that as a fan, you've got to be thrilled with that. I mean, in your first year going 10-2, probably making the playoff with the schedule that you have, that's awesome. And I know that there's all these things about like going 11-1 or 12-0 and all these high expectations, but I think 10-2 is perfectly fine. I think you got to be thrilled with that. I think you've got to be okay with 9-3. I think there's a strong chance that it's his first year as a coach, a lot of new players, a lot of new stuff happening. You could go 9-3 and drop a random game. If it's losing to Alabama or something, it definitely hurts less than like Kentucky or Auburn for sure. But 8-4 is when I would start to worry. And I'm not going to say worry for Kiffin's future, but I think 8-4 is a huge disappointment for this team. Because when you think about it, you bring in all of these rental players for the year. Maybe some of them stick around. Who knows? I highly doubt it. And yeah, you're doing really well in the high school trail right now, but like, you've got the roster to go all in. Like, this team could win a national championship. It would not surprise me at all if we see LSU in the Final Four of the college football playoff if some luck goes their way. Like, I think 10-2 is a reasonable expectation for this team. Hopefully this video is informative for LSU fans and non-LSU fans alike. Be sure to share it with your LSU fan friends, or if you are an LSU fan, send it to your family. Do something. Get this video out there and spread the word. Let me know if I did a good job of breaking down your team, if everything on here is accurate. I'm always trying to improve these videos, and your feedback does mean a lot to me. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe and continue to join us on the journey covering the top 10 teams going into the college football season. So much fun to make these and can't wait to bring you guys the next one.